And then we can run the little bumper first.
Yeah.
What bump?
So put it on starting soon.
It's not. Okay. There we go.
All right. Well, welcome back in to Beyond the Mic. Another week, another episode. John Clendenin, joined by Carlos Zimmermann, as always. Justin, producer Justin, as Carlos, just hopping right into it. An eventful week in college football this year.
Oh my gosh, it was all over the place, upsets left and right, games that we thought were going to go the way they did, and they did, and it's just so much to break down, and it's usually that case when you get to week 8 out of the 15-week season, teams trying to position themselves. It got crazy on Friday, then it continued into Saturday, and it's going to made for interesting rankings, which we'll talk about here in a little bit. But man, where do we even start?
I think the biggest story was the inevitability of Billy Napier, no longer the head coach at the University of Florida, is out after 4 seasons. I believe 23 and 24 overall is his final record at Florida. And I mean, it was just a matter of time, Carlos. We were gonna see them make a change. You were going to lose to Mississippi State before Jeff Lebby inexplicably calls for a pass, and you're picked off by the defensive tackle. And so, kind of going the A&M route a couple of years ago, beating Mississippi State, firing their head coach.
That's right.
But a good note to end on for the Billy Napier tenure that overall, I mean, just didn't seem like a good fit from the beginning. He had success in the G5 at Louisiana Lafayette, and then makes the jump in, and now Florida. Honestly, I think it's probably the number one job that's open right now. I know people in the Midwest and up north are going to say Penn State is a better job, but I think Florida, with the facilities you have, the swamp being what it is, playing in the SEC, being in the state of Florida, especially whenever I think Florida State's about to open up here soon after they drop another game to Stanford. I think the University of Florida is probably the premier open job in the country right now. And, looking at what ESPN says, the 5 candidates they have for the job: Lane Kiffin, Eli Drinkowitz, Rhett Lashley, Jed Fish, and Marcus Freeman from Notre Dame. And Ole Miss fans, buckle up, because it's another coaching carousel. And your coach, he's stayed there for a while, but he has a history of leaving at midnight out the back door.
Yeah, ain't that the truth? So we'll see. I think between Florida and Penn State, those are going to be the two that are going to be prime candidates. And I think the 2 exiting coaches, they'll be candidates for other lower jobs as well, whether that be at the group of 5 or they have to drop to the FCS or they get a coordinator position in the NFL. So we'll see how that all pans out, but that was really the big story out of the weekend. And then when you look at the games themselves, man, you got right out of the jump on Friday when Louisville goes to Coral Gables and takes care of the Hurricanes 24-21, sending some shockwaves into what ended up being a wild upset late in the weekend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, absolutely. Looking at that, I mean, just the start of the week, everybody talking about it. And then you move on. Minnesota, I think that's a really slept-on one. Upsets a top 25 Nebraska team. Cal beats UNC 21-18.
Yep.
So the Chapel Bill show continues to be a nightmare. All-time classic game between Ole Miss and Georgia that came down to the final few possessions.
That's right.
And then, there were 11 undefeated teams in the FBS coming into this weekend, and 5 of them lost. So, winning is hard at that level, especially with the parity we're seeing in college football now. But I mean, just overall a wild, wild weekend, and then we ended off Florida State losing their fourth straight game, and now all of a sudden, I thought me and you joked, I thought it was going to be the LinkedIn Bowl at the end of the year between Florida and Florida State, between Mike Norvell and Billy Napier. Whoever wins gets to keep their job another season. Whoever loses, well, go start checking LinkedIn. But instead, Florida makes the move, and now I don't even know if Mike Norvell's going to be there for that game.
No, and that's just it's how the cookie crumbles sometimes. And I think yeah, by the time we get to the end of the season, both of them will be displaced. Already one being displaced in Billy Napier. I think the couple of their big games that were big, Ohio State held serve. Got a win over Wisconsin on the road. I don't care what people say, whether you're the Big Ten, the SEC, or the Big 12. If you have to go on the road in conference play, it's going to be hard.
Yes, Camp Randall was no slouch. I mean, that's when Wisconsin's good, that's one of the premier places to play in college football.
That's right. And, well, Julian Sands just had probably his best game of the year. 36 of 42, 393 yards, 4 touchdowns through the air. I think that's just shows the prowess that Ohio State has. Indiana held serve at home against Michigan State. Played very well against the Spartans. They stay undefeated. A&M avoided a scare with Arkansas, being able to hang on the road in Fayetteville. Marcel Reed played excellent. 23 for 32, 280 yards, 3 touchdowns. But Arkansas hung there till the very end. And like you said, the classic between Ole Miss and Georgia. Bama was able to get a 17-point win at home over Tennessee. But then you start rattling off some of the upsets and what shook up the rankings this week. Arizona State beats Texas Tech in Tempe. Big game for Sam Levitt and the Sun Devils. Vanderbilt at home knocks off number 10 LSU. Nussmeier on paper had one of the better games, but Vanderbilt still able to come away with a win. The Diego Pavia experience continues to run rampant in Commodore country. Looking through here, Notre Dame took care of USC by 10. And then the thriller in the Holy War, BYU and Utah. That was a heck of a game. Coming down to the very end, and BYU was able to pull that one out. So that brings us over to the rankings.
Well, I think you forgot the biggest one.
Who did I forget?
You forgot UAB, fresh off of firing Trent Dilfer.
That's right.
Memphis goes in there, top 25. A lot of buzz. I know on this show we've been really high on the Tigers. And, talking about them possibly being a group of 5 playoff participant.
Yep.
And UAB upsets them 31-24 and really controlled and dominated that game for the entire game. And so that's why, we put out on Twitter that we're going to have some things to talk about, because all of a sudden now the group of 5 picture is getting clearer but also a lot murkier if Memphis is able to beat USF this weekend.
That'll be the kicker, if you will. If Memphis beats South Florida, they may be able to re-enter themselves back into the conversation. If they don't, you could probably wipe Memphis out of there and then probably insert Tulane into that picture after Tulane has performed at such a high level. Got a win over Army this last weekend.
Another game that came down to the end.
It did.
Bob won a ball in the end zone.
And then before we get to the rankings, just a couple other ones. Houston, walk-off field goal over Arizona. Willie Fritz has the Cougs 6-1 in his first year at the helm of U of H. TCU won their rivalry game over Baylor, 42-36.
The Revivalry.
The Revivalry, yes.
Yes.
Hey, North Texas, when it comes to the G5, they're slowly creeping their way back in. They're 6-1, so that G5 are really, you could call it the G5 bid. Let's just call it the American bid at this point.
Yeah.
Because the reason for that being is UNLV fell over the weekend to Boise State, and I think that all pretty much puts the Mountain West null and void when it comes to the CFP. So really it's going to come down to whoever takes the American and if they can keep themselves to just one loss.
Yeah, absolutely. When I look at the American Conference, looking at the standings, looking at where everybody's at, Navy has a big game this week against Notre Dame, against North Texas. Notre Dame in 2 weeks, and then South Florida in 3 weeks. we mentioned, they had Notre Dame, South Florida, and Memphis in 3 weeks. And I said if you win 2 of those 3 games, we're probably looking at the group of 5 participant in the college football playoff. But Tulane, they don't score a lot. The only difference is they don't give up any points. They've only given up 50 points in conference play this season. Their only loss of the year to an Ole Miss team that is a top 10 team still, even though they went down to Georgia. That was a 45-10 game where some turnovers hurt you a lot. But that was also the second game of the year for a team with a new quarterback after your quarterback transfers out to Duke.
Right.
So, I mean, it's going to be a very interesting November in the American. I'm very excited for that. We're going to see a lot of high stakes night games throughout the week in the American. And man, South Florida, if you're able to take care of business, how about that? You may be the only team from the state of Florida that has had 3 teams ranked inside the top 10 at some point this season be the participant in the playoff.
It's a lot to think about.
Because with Miami falling to Louisville, how are they going to respond? Miami has always been really, really good in the first half of the season. And, they're not leaving the state of Florida until, I believe, November 8th. Is the day that they have their first true road game outside the state of Florida. But what have you shown me previously? And I think that's been the story of this college football season so far with teams like Penn State, with teams like Florida, with teams like Florida State. When you're faced with adversity, a lot of teams are reverting back to old habits and narratives that we've seen. And the narrative of Miami has always been they start strong and they can't finish. So, going to be very, very interesting in the group of 5. I'm very excited for the American Conference. I think it's probably the most balanced conference, and that means it's going to be the most exciting.
Yes, it is. All right, now that don't jump the gun here, let's look at the rankings for this week. Top 10 goes as follows. Ohio State, near consensus number 1, got 60 first-place votes. Indiana's right behind them with 6 at the number 2 spot. A&M jumps up 1 to number 3 with that Miami loss. Number 4, Alabama up to that spot, up 2 spots. Georgia's up 4 spots to 5. Oregon is up 2 to 6. Georgia Tech joins the top 10. They're now at number 7. Ole Miss, with their loss to Georgia, with respect, they only dropped 3 spots, down to number 8. Miami falls to number 9. And then Vanderbilt jumps into the top 10 for the AP Top 25. John, sound off.
Yeah, I think Ohio State is playing like the team that we thought Texas was going to be in the preseason. I think that Julian Sayin is playing the way we thought Arch Manning was going to play. And when those two teams met, we actually saw the course of the season ahead of us. We just didn't know it at the time. I think Julian Sayin is playing like a Heisman contender. His 3 interceptions have come against Grambling and Ohio, and in those games he combined for 7 touchdowns. I think last week we saw them really open up the offense for him, and we saw the 5-star talent and the reason why he was the last quarterback Nick Saban ever recruited to Alabama. I think that Ohio State defense, Matt Patricia, is showing why he was one of the architects of the Patriots dynasty.
Yep.
On the defensive side of the ball. They are electric. Indiana, Kirk Cignetti, he's had one close game against Iowa. That was always going to be an interesting game, coming off an Illinois team that you just absolutely dominated. Now he has a scorching hot UCLA team that thinks they can beat anybody. Which, by the way, shout out Tom Skipper, the actual interim head coach for the UCLA Bruins. I know Jerry Neuheisel's getting all the hype, calling plays and everything like that, but Tom Skipper is the interim head coach. So
He is.
Want to give him his flowers on the turnaround job he's done over in Los Angeles for the Bruins. But I look at the end of this schedule, and you have a Penn State team. You're on the road at Penn State, at Maryland, and at Purdue. So if you're able to get past this UCLA team at home, who's been giving everybody fits all of a sudden because they're playing with some belief, then I feel really confident about you and Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Both those teams are going to be in. A&M versus Alabama right now is the SEC championship course that's been charted. A&M, I think you were a lot better than that score indicates. I think Coach Elko said it best, that the defense did not live up to the standard that they had set for themselves. But once again, we saw that A&M play some of the best complementary football in the country. What I mean by that is when the defense isn't stepping up and doing their job, the offense always comes out and puts up points. And when the offense is struggling, the defense just absolutely shuts you down. And I don't think we've seen Texas A&M play their best football game yet. I think if they have the kind of offensive performances we've seen from Marcel Reed, and the running back room continues to get along without Le'Veon Moss, who was a first-team All-SEC candidate before he went down, and the defense plays up to its standard, I think they may be one of the most complete teams in college football. Alabama, completely different team than what we saw in Tallahassee to start the season.
Yep.
We thought Kalen DeBoer was going to be on the hot seat here, and all he's done is gone and win 4 straight road games. And to go win that rivalry game against Tennessee, that's at Tennessee, that's always going to be a stadium that it's going to be popping when Alabama comes to town because they loathe them so much.
Alabama's at home.
Oh, Alabama's at home.
They were in
Okay,
Tuscaloosa.
well then, but Tennessee's always going to come out for Alabama.
Yes.
Going down to, I think Georgia and Oregon are very similar in that you haven't really beaten anybody, but Georgia versus Georgia Tech at the end of the year, that could be a game that pushes Georgia into the college football playoff discussion.
Or knocks them out.
Knocks them out, yes.
You look at Georgia and Oregon, I feel like they're just two teams. They're that outside looking in. They're not in their respective conference championship games right now because of the teams that are ahead of them, being A&M and Alabama, and then for Oregon, Indiana, and Ohio State. So you got to think that they're going to need to try and pull off some wins down the stretch to be able to get themselves not only into that conversation, but like you said, get into the CFP talk. Like we talked about with Ole Miss, first off, I really love seeing Georgia Tech at number 7. Mm-hmm. That Georgia and Georgia Tech game may actually have maybe one of the more fun games at the end of the season that it has been in previous years because Georgia Tech had been that inept a few years ago.
And it's in Atlanta.
It is.
It will be at Georgia Tech.
So I think I like Ole Miss at 8. It was a tough loss to Georgia, a game you felt like maybe Ole Miss just kind of let slip away down the stretch. I watched that game from start to finish, but you still give them the respect of what they had already accomplished through the season, and they played probably the most quality opponent to date. I think Miami falling to 9 is respectable, given that they bumped Louisville into the top 25, which we'll talk about here in a second. And then just as a college football fan, Vanderbilt in the top 10, it's something you don't say every day.
Haven't said it in about 70 years, Carlos.
And none of us were alive at that point. Our grandparents were, but not Vanderbilt.
Yeah.
Wow.
And top 15 matchup. I know we're gonna cover the next 10 here in a second, but Vanderbilt versus Missouri in Nashville. College game day is gonna come to town. Diego Pavia. They were in that Alabama game, and it was Diego Pavia turning the ball over that cost them the game.
Right.
But that's your best player trying to make plays. It's not you didn't lose that game to Alabama on the road because of they were just outright better than you. At the end of the day, your best player didn't play his best game, and you still only lost by 2 scores. So Vanderbilt, very exciting on the outside looking in. If they can get a little help, then I'm very excited to see what can happen. It would be very awesome to see Vanderbilt in an SEC championship game against whoever they face.
That would be something. They would need some help, obviously. Like you said, they would need. I mean, let's just look at what Vanderbilt still has in front of them. They're home against Missouri, then they have to come to Austin to play Texas, and then they finish home against Auburn and Kentucky, and then rivalry week against Tennessee. But you're in Neyland Stadium, so not an easy path, but they showed they can run with the best of college football, beating then number 11 South Carolina battling hard with the number 10 Alabama, then the next week beating the number 10 LSU. So you like what the Commodores are doing. Next 10, or really through the rest of it, BYU, Notre Dame, 11 and 12. BYU, man, new kings of the Big 12 right now after Texas Tech lost to Arizona State. Oklahoma moves up 1-13. Tech drops to number 14 with that loss on the road. Missouri up 1. Virginia avoided a scare. They move up 2. Big drop for Tennessee in their loss to Alabama. They're down to 17. South Florida jumps to 18 after being at 19. And then Louisville, our highest of the newcomers, moves right up to number 19 after their win over Miami. And then LSU cascades all the way down from 10 to 20 after that loss to Vanderbilt, which I felt may have been a tad steep, given they were playing a ranked opponent. But I don't know. What do you think?
I think LSU got flat out dominated by the Commodores, and I think that their tumble reflects that. When I look at LSU's schedule, that one against Clemson does not hold any water whatsoever. That one against Florida does not hold any water whatsoever. And your win against South Carolina, I mean, we want to talk about teams that haven't lived up to the preseason rankings. South Carolina is one of them. You know, Lenora Sellers had just as much hype as anybody coming into the season, and, you know, granted, he's been a little banged up. But it might be time that we start talking about the seat under Brian Kelly's temperature, because you have A&M this week, night game at Death Valley. Then you're at Alabama. Then you play against Arkansas. I don't think that's going to be a night game because by that point you're going to be 5-4. If you lose both those games to A&M and Alabama, and then you you have Western Kentucky, and then you finish the road at Oklahoma. So this is an LSU team that a couple weeks ago was in the top 4 that we're looking at could potentially finish 6-6. And I don't know if you've been on Twitter, Carlos, but the LSU fans are livid.
Oh, rightfully
with
so.
Brian Kelly, and it's so bad that they're posting videos of Nick Saban with the Tigers.
Yeah.
And so when I look at it, that 11 to 20 range, I'm really glad Louisville's finally getting some respect. Miller Moss has been fantastic this season, and all Jeff Brom has done ever since he was at Purdue is go on the road on weeknights and beat teams in the top 5. I mean, all those Purdue wins over Ohio State, Penn State, Michigan State, that was all him.
Yep.
That whole culture was built by him, and then he goes to Louisville, and all he's done since is continue to do that. Virginia, like you said, has been excellent this season. I'm glad that they were able to hold on. You know, maybe looking at Georgia Tech versus Virginia in the ACC championship game with a playoff bid on the line. Texas Tech, it's rough. I'm a really big fan of Will Hammond, but you just had what happened to you happen to the Arizona State Sun Devils last week against Utah. No starting quarterback. You're starting your backup on the road and just not able to come through. And I think that's kind of been the trend of the college football season this year is we have top teams that aren't playing fully healthy, which is a shout out to teams like Ohio State and Indiana and A&M and Georgia Tech who've been able to keep their guys upright and allowed you to compete. Meanwhile, Oklahoma, I really thought was going to have a tough time with South Carolina, but I think I'm going to sell off all my Gamecock stock and just set them off. Just let them go out to pasture because I think the Gamecocks, unless they can pull off some late season magic like they did last year, I think the ship has sailed on their season.
Indeed it has. And then the rest of the top 25, Cincinnati makes a big jump to number 21. Texas drops 1 because
should have lost.
I'm
sorry, but you
if Kentucky, I mean, they convert that 4th and goal. I highly doubt Texas scores a touchdown on the next drive.
Absolutely, you got outgained 3-1. You know, and I saw somebody put it succinctly. Kentucky got 24.5 yards in overtime. Texas got -2, and Texas won the game. I think there's not a bigger lame duck coach in college football than Mark Stoops right now. I think if Kentucky had the money, he'd be gone. But when you're at a basketball school like that, you're not going to spend $40 million that can go to basketball NIL. That $40 million can go to the Wildcats. So once again, Mark Stoops shows that the University of Kentucky football job is the best job in college football because he gets paid $10 million a year to win 7 games. I would love to have that kind of job.
Well, all that money goes to the other Mark.
Yes.
Mark Pope.
Yes.
So Texas avoids disaster and wins that game against Kentucky, even though in all intents and purposes should not have won that game. And then the rest, I think all 3 are re-entries, if I'm not mistaken. Illinois is up to 23, Arizona State back in the rankings at 24, and then Michigan comes in at number 25. USC, Memphis, Utah, Nebraska, all with their losses, they drop out. USC being at 26, Utah at 27, Tulane, and Houston, and Navy. 3 schools, all with ties to the American, by the way. Hanging around there trying to find their way to the top 25. I was kind of disappointed Houston didn't get more votes, given with how they've played this year. And, of course, I'm a big Willie Fritz fan. So it's going to be interesting to see how things shake out going into week numero 9.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing for me with Houston is you've played one team that's actually decent and Tech and got kind of.
I thought you were going to say Stephen F. Austin.
Thoroughly dominated. Well, I saw tweets from certain members of their coaching staff targeting Sam Houston, and it's like, well, if you want to bring back the rivalry after losing 11 straight, then that's fine.
By all means, go ahead.
But there's a reason why we were invited to move up to the FBS and Stephen F. wasn't, even though I'm looking forward to them facing off against Tarleton in the Battle of the Purple Schools.
Yes.
But
I think Houston has a big test.
They do this week. Can you go on the road and win a game against a top 25 team? And if you can do that, I mean, look, really, you need help because you don't play BYU and you don't play Cincinnati. And those are the 2 4-0 teams in your league in conference play. Now, if you are able to beat Arizona State and give them a second conference loss, then you can kind of hope maybe through some tiebreaker stuff that with Tech at 1 loss that you can kind of squeak in there and maybe find a way to get in. But, I mean, in the first season under Willie Fritz, being 6-1 at this point, with all the roster turnover you had, really just a kudos job to Coach Fritz and the staff down at the University of Houston.
Absolutely. It's going to make for an exciting week 9. As we had mentioned, lots of games that could go any which way. And I think arguably my game that I'll keep my tabs on will be Ole Miss, Oklahoma. I think that's a big swing game for both of those teams to try and get themselves into a position to continue to be in the conversation for the CFP. So that'll be definitely one to watch. I'd say in the mid-afternoon window, Missouri-Vanderbilt's the other one to keep an eye on because that's, again, another swing game, if you will, at this point in the season. And then get all the way here to the night games. Of course, A&M, LSU in Death Valley. Will be interesting. 6:30 on ABC, and we'll see if Marcel Reed can outplay Garrett Nussmeier.
Again, last year.
Yeah.
Outplayed him in a half. For me, I like UCLA versus Indiana, that big noon kickoff on Fox. Can UCLA keep it going, or are they all out of tricks? South Florida versus Memphis on ESPN2. At Memphis, USF, 3.5-point favorite. Think he'll be a lot closer than that. Almost would pick Memphis outright. Later on in that mid-afternoon window on the SEC Network, Auburn versus Arkansas is very intriguing to me. Auburn's defense can stop everybody. Their offense can't move the ball worth a lick. Arkansas's defense can't stop anybody, and their offense gets whatever they want against anybody they want to.
Yep.
So the non-moving force meets the permeable object in that game, and it might be a game for Hugh Freeze's job.
Yes.
As we've seen a rash of firings, I think in the mid-afternoon window, I'm looking at Missouri versus Vanderbilt. I'm looking at, I'm going to start keeping more eyes on Navy, Florida Atlantic versus Navy, just to watch the midshipmen on the CBS Sports Network. And then in the night game, going to watch A&M versus LSU. Michigan at Michigan State. How many times did we see Jim Harbaugh lose to Michigan State on the road in East Lansing?
Oh, he has trouble with the snap.
Yep, that's it. But then also, let me see if I can find where this game is going to be broadcast, because we sometimes peak down a level, but this week we have a big one, the Battle of the Dakotas.
Yes.
North Dakota State versus South Dakota State. Let me see here. South Dakota State.
It's got to be broadcast
Yeah.
somewhere, right?
So, South Dakota channel. All right.
It's on ESPNU.
Okay, ESPNU or ESPN Plus. So those they're going to play this weekend. Let me see here. Hold on. Looking at Saturday. Yep, ESPNU at 7 p.m. So they didn't have it on the ESPN big schedule for college football, but that one is going to be probably on the multi-view as well, because that is going to have huge, not just national title ramifications, but bragging rights in the FCS level. And Tarleton State is going to move up either to 2 or maybe if they dominate 1. I don't know. You never know.
You never can tell. Even after Sam Houston left the FCS, I've always kept an eye on the FCS side, because I've still got colleagues in the FCS. A good friend of mine, Kyle Cruz, is the voice of the Tarleton Texans, and they're playing incredible football, being 8-0. So that game has huge ramifications on what the FCS playoffs is going to look like down the stretch. So we'll see what happens. I might have that one on as well on Saturday night. So it'll be interesting to see how the FCS shakes out.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. Next on the agenda, normally this is when we move to our weekend coverage, but after a phone call I had with John on Saturday, or actually it was late Friday night, I don't think John really wants to talk about what happened this week. So we'll just mosey right along. I technically did not have a weekend coverage, as I took a week off to try and just get together mentally and take care of myself. So I didn't have the Sam Houston game or the Huntsville game, but I did watch both of them. And Sam Houston still had their woes, struggled against UTEP, but hung around in the ball game as long as they could. But after Hunter Watson went down close to halftime, you had to turn over to Mabry Matoyer, and just couldn't make the plays to get the victory. So the Bearkats still 0-7. They have the off week this week. They have La Tech on Halloween night. Going to be a tall task being at Joe Eilert Stadium. So we'll see how that pans out. But for Huntsville, big come-from-behind win over the Dayton Broncos. Down 21-7 at the half. I'm sitting there watching, and I'm like, man, we are just snake-bitten in some areas. And just a couple of plays you take off, and it allows Dayton to make a big play. But the second half, Huntsville just turned it on into another level. And I think really what it came down to, there was just a sequence of just back and forth, and it was a matter of, all right, what defense is going to blink first? And luckily for Huntsville, it was Dayton's defense that blinked, and Huntsville won 42-41. Reinvigorating this team and the program has them in a position to make a push for the postseason with 3 games left in the high school football slate. Lake Creek, Nederland, Splendora is what's left for the Hornets, so I'm excited to see how that's going to shake out. If you want a full in-depth preview of the week ahead, join us tonight at Chick-fil-A, 7 o'clock for the Hornet Nation Coaches Show. We'll have former Sam Houston Bearcat wide receiver turned assistant wide receiver coach Brennan Tibbs on the show. Zay Adolph, the quarterback of the Hornets, he will be on the show, as will defensive lineman Isaiah Lewis and, of course, head coach Todd Mavis. So join us for that at Chick-fil-A tonight at 7 o'clock. It'll be fun. All right. Now that we've gotten our weekend coverage out of the way, let's, I was hoping today we would have a World Series matchup. We don't.
Instead, we have the most exciting 2 words in sports, Game 7.
Game 7. That's right. Game 7 between the M's and the Blue Jays. Tonight, 7:10 first pitch on Fox. After we get done with the coach's show and get everything packed up, I'll skip back to the house and catch the back end of that ball game because, what a series it's been. I mean, you have the NLCS on one side. It's so one-sided, and then you have 2 teams in the ALCS just going blow for blow, home run for home run, and it'll all come down for one. I think MLB.com has the best. Jubilation for one, heartache for the other.
Yeah, and I mean, especially 2 fan bases that are so starved, not just for a World Series win, but a World Series appearance. After the Expos left and went to Washington, that the Canadian fans really have rallied around the Blue Jays and that franchise. A team that for years we've been wondering when will they finally break through the AL East barrier, and we've seen the Yankees and the Red Sox and the Orioles and the Rays all have success, and it always seemed like Toronto was just kind of right there, but they were always missing something, and now finally they have what they've been looking for in a team, and they just have not been denied. Or will not be denied, and so, man, it's so hard because I wanted today. I was hoping that we would have a World Series to talk about because real quick, Shohei Ohtani put up the greatest baseball performance I've ever seen in my life, right? And to put it in football terms, he threw for 400 yards, 5 touchdowns, and then went out and played safety and had 3 picks and 15 tackles.
Essentially,
I mean, it's. To go out in that and clinch the series single-handedly, I don't think that we'll ever see anything like that. And I saw something earlier that day that it was like, Shohei Ohtani is human. He struck out 17 times and 38 at-bats so far in the NLCS. Why is nobody talking about it? Well, because he's not human. All right? Even in Greek mythology, the gods would bleed sometimes. And so when I look at Shohei, I just it truly is astonishing. The ability that he has to not just go out and be the best hitter in baseball, but we need him to be the best pitcher. And so I just wanted to share my thoughts on that while we're talking baseball, because when you see true greatness, it needs to be appreciated.
Yes.
Right? When you see the Mona Lisa, when you have the ability to go see it, you need to go see it to appreciate it, even if at the end of the day it's just a selfie from the Renaissance.
Yeah.
Right? When you go see the Sistine Chapel, you should go see it, because to experience true greatness in its time is something that we rarely ever get to enjoy. But looking at Game 7, I mean, I am very, very excited. Both these teams have punched each other to death, and I know the Dodgers are just sitting there.
They're just licking their chops.
But, I mean, whatever team they're going to get is going to be battle-tested, and they're not going to want to fold.
No, and I've always said that if you have one side where a series goes so quick, just like the Dodgers and Brewers did, it's a lot of sitting around for that winning team. And then you have 2 teams that are just going at each other, and like you said, they're battle-tested. Neither of these teams have ever won a Game 7 in their franchise history. It's the first ever Game 7 for Seattle ever. One of those things is going to give tonight. And you look at one side, you have a lineup of just a bunch of mashers. George Springer, as Astros fans know, he's just reinvigorating his prime. Vlad Jr., it's in his blood at the end of the day. Addison Barger's come along and has become a bringer of rain for the Blue Jays, as I saw last night. Then you look at the other side. Seattle's got their own set of big hitters. The big dumper, Cal Raleigh. Julio Rodriguez is another one. And Eugenio Suarez, who hit the grand slam in Game 5 that solidified that win for Seattle to just bring us to this point. I mean, he brought out his inner Edgar Martinez in that ball game. So they got their own guys. So what is it going to boil down to? I think it boils down to the starters at the end of the night. George Kirby on one side, Shane Bieber on the other side. Which of them is going to blink first? And that'll determine who wins this game.
Absolutely. And, and taking out my personal Astros feelings about the Seattle Mariners, it's just hard for me to not trust a guy in George Kirby who's won a Cy Young, who really has the experience of being that frontline guy. Now, granted, whenever I go to his career stats and I go to look at the postseason numbers, he's 5-2 with a 4.73 ERA. He's 2-1 with a 4.73 ERA. But he was great in 2022 in 2 games for Cleveland. 1-0, 2.03 ERA, 15 strikeouts to 4 walks, only gave up 3 runs in the last time he pitched.
You gotta think about it.
And it's just hard for me. It's hard for me in the Toronto. They're going to be in the Rogers Center, in the Dome. It's going to be loud. It's going to be raucous. I think back to how Toronto was in 2019 when the Raptors had their Kawhi Leonard run to the championship and how passionate that city and that country were. That it's hard for me to not take it. But what the last thing I'm going to say, it's interesting. There really have not been any close games besides Game 1.
Yep.
So I think there's going to be a moment, and we're not going to know when it will be until it happens. But when that moment happens, whoever is able to capitalize on it first is going to win this game and go to the World Series.
That's right. And then best of luck to you against one of the best teams in all of
Money can
baseball
buy.
this year. And money can buy. Yeah. 7:10 on Fox. All right, let's pivot to NFL real quick here. Not much to talk about the Texans because they have not played yet. They play tonight at 9 o'clock. So that might be my double box. ALCS on one side, excuse me, and then put Texans Seahawks on the other side. Tall task, and I'll bring Justin in for this because you are also a Texans aficionado like I am.
Yes.
Big test for the Texans on the road in a very hostile environment at Lumen Field in Seattle. It'll be interesting to see what Houston is going to be able to accomplish tonight on the road. Big test for Stroud and the offense.
Well, you know as well as I do that primetime games can kind of be our kryptonite at times, specifically primetime games in Seattle. It's not a stadium we've played our best ball at on primetime in the past, so it's going to be a heck of a test. Texans are coming off a bye, right?
Yep.
This was the bye week last week.
Yep.
Sorry,
Yep.
I'm off on my weeks. They just got to keep the momentum going. That they've kind of started to build. We thought when we started 0-3, the sky was falling and everything was done, but they're grinding it out. We're back up to 500.
Well, close. 2-3, but
Are we 2-3?
yeah, 2-3. But still,
I counted the bye week as a win.
you often want to count at that, but I will say this. They're up against the Seahawks team that boasts really a three-headed dragon of Sam Darnold, Kenneth Walker, and Jackson Smith-Njigba, who, as we've seen, they have had phenomenal seasons, so it's going to be really also hinging on the defense to make some big plays on Seattle, and having to do that in a hostile atmosphere is going to be tough. So, again, 9 o'clock kick on ESPN. Texans trying to get to 500. Texans are 1-2 away from home. Seahawks are 1-2 at home. So
That's fascinating.
one of those things we'll give tonight. Yeah, Seattle's undefeated on the road this year. So
one trend is going to have to give. Let's
Yes,
hope
indeed.
it goes in our direction.
Looking at yesterday, a lot of games that were kind of shocking. The Rams putting up a 35-piece on Jacksonville. You want to talk about the collapse that Jacksonville's on right now. That is something, to say the least. I feel like we're looking at a 2014 version of the NFL. The Pats are 5-2.
Elaborate.
The Pats are 5-2. The Panthers are 4-3. The Broncos are 5-2. The Colts are 6-1. And the Packers are 4-1-1. I feel like, and the Niners are 5-2. We're just staring dead into what the NFL was 10 years ago.
No, I feel like I've jumped back into high school. I remember looking at the standings the other day while I was on the phone with my brother, Houston, who, you know how he is. We're talking about the standings. I'm like, This is a weird AFC. This feels like when I was about your age.
Yeah.
Things.
Yeah.
There's definitely shifts going on in the conference right now,
Yeah.
and in the league.
And then, John, I'll bring you in. Cowboys dominating Washington.
Carlos, man, just wish we could string something together. Look, here's the deal. We're third in points scored. We're second in passing yards per game. 13th in rushing yards per game. But that's a little misleading because Javonte Williams is second in rushing yards on the season and sixth in rushing touchdowns, or third in rushing touchdowns, tied for fourth in carries. We are the 2021 Cincinnati Bengals.
Yeah.
That's what we are. Dak Prescott playing like an MVP. I mean, he really is. He's second in passing touchdowns. He's second in passing yards. He's first in QBR. He is playing like the Dak Prescott that we've come to know. And our defense cannot stop anything.
You're right.
You're right, man.
I mean, Carlos, you could line up in the backfield for the Washington Commanders and get 5 yards of carry against the Cowboys front seven. Okay? I saw things that I was really encouraged by. I was glad to see Deron Bland start making some plays again. The defense played well. You're going up against a Broncos team that had to score 33 points in the fourth quarter to beat the Giants. And then you have a Cardinals team that everybody's on the IR. And then you have a Raiders team who is just not very good. I mean, there's no other way to put it. They're just not very good.
They got
blanked. They should have signed Sam Darnold. That's really what it is. They chose wrong. And so when I look at what's ahead, after that, you then have the Eagles. Okay, now the Eagles have their bye week, but they're home against the Giants, so that'll be 6-2, and then they're at the Packers, and then home against Detroit. So we're looking at an Eagles team that may be 6-4 when you go into their place. Now, if the Cowboys can win 3 games, they'll be 6-3-1, and all of a sudden they're in the lead of the division.
Yep.
But they have to string something together. They have gone loss, win, loss, tie, win, loss, win. You have to find some form of consistency. And
it doesn't get easier.
No, it does not. That back half of the schedule is brutal. Chiefs are Eagles that we talked about. Then the Chiefs.
I think that's Thanksgiving.
That's
too.
Thanksgiving. Chiefs on Thanksgiving. Then at the Lions. The Vikings have cooled off a bit. The Chargers have cooled off a bit. And then at the Commanders and at the Giants to end the season. Okay, you are still in the hunt. Your offense is good enough to win football games by themselves. You just have to play average defense. That's all you have to do. Just go do average defense. And they did some different things. They showed a lot more man coverage than they did. And I was glad because this defense was assembled for Dan Quinn, who coincidentally was on the other side of the sidelines yesterday. And he likes to play physical press man coverage.
Yep.
That's why Trayvon Diggs was so good. That's why Deron Bland was so good. Likes to get his guys out there one-on-one on islands and make playmakers. All the way back to whenever he was at Seattle. I think Richard Sherman, think all those guys. Right? So now you're asking them to play man, or to play zone. And zone can be good if you can get pressure on the quarterback, which they did not. They have not done until last week. So things are trending up. I am reserved in my optimism. I think this week at Denver is going to be a huge litmus test of which team are we going to get. Are we going to get the team that the defense can just get the stops they need and let the offense do their work, or are we going to get the team that went to the Bears and just got absolutely obliterated?
Right. And then you flip back to the Texans real quick. After Seattle, I mean, it doesn't get easier for Houston. You host the Niners, which it depends on what kind of game you're going to get out of them. And then you host the Broncos, then you host the Jaguars, then you're at Tennessee, then you host Buffalo. That's the stretch of next 6 for Houston. So depending on tonight, we'll determine what team we're looking at in H-Town. And then Yeah, I mean, the NFL just continues to just get crazier and crazier. The weeks go by. That Broncos game was insane yesterday. Giants had a 32-0 lead going into the fourth quarter.
No, it was 19-0.
19
it was 19 to
19
nothing.
nothing
And the Broncos scored 33 points in the fourth quarter to win.
19-0, and then you lose.
Yes.
Brutal. But welcome to modern day NFL.
Just get a stop.
That's all you got to do.
If you just get a stop, then you win the game. And you do it for 3 quarters, and then I don't know, I don't get paid the big bucks, but the art of the in-game adjustment has been lost. Sometimes I think people go too much on their how should I say it? Their analytics sheet to decide what to do, and you've lost the feel for the game. And it's something that I've seen with the Cowboys personally, because the Cowboys now 3 times this year have gone up to the line of scrimmage on 4th and less than 5 and tried to get the defense to jump off sides. And they don't do it, and then they're inside the 30-yard line. They're at like the 28, and Brian Schottenheimer calls a timeout to not take the delay of game penalty, right? Because the analytics say, hey, you don't want to back it up.
Yeah.
You have the greatest kicker the NFL has ever seen. Okay? There's no difference for him between 48 and 58. He's going to kick the football through the uprights and make it. So why do you waste a timeout? You know what I'm saying? Because that's what the analytics tell you to do.
Yep.
Right? It's just a tool. Use it, burn it, it doesn't matter. So some of the art of the game has been lost in coaching, and I think yesterday was a prime example of that in the Broncos versus Giants game.
All right, and then before we go into our last segment, it is time to introduce a new professional sport into the mix. We're back.
Basketball.
Literally. The association has returned, and it all starts tomorrow night with a return to NBA on NBC, which I'm very, very much excited about.
Yes.
It's an era of basketball that a lot of 90s basketball fans are very much excited about. I never saw a game on NBA on NBC that I can remember, so this will be my first tomorrow. It's a doubleheader, Rockets and Thunder, which is quite interesting in hindsight. Thunder coming off the NBA championship, and then Warriors and Lakers follow after that, 2 teams that have been synonymous with basketball lore over the last 15 years or so. But for the Rockets, it's a return for Kevin Durant to the place that made him what he is now.
Well, Carlos, and for the Rockets, it's the return to the rightful place that such a storied franchise has earned through the 90s, in the 2000s. The Rockets, there were some rough years in the early 2020s. The James Harden fat suit.
Yep.
Not Raphael Stone. Who was the guy that we brought in to coach the team?
Steven Silas.
Steven Silas. And, nothing on Steven Silas. I don't think he was given that great of a team to coach.
No.
But what Ime Udoka has done for this franchise in this city, that's a proud basketball city. It's a proud sports team city, but for the longest time, the Rockets were what the city of Houston looked at because of Hakeem and Clyde and the championships in the 90s.
I mean, you look at the big 3 in Houston at that time. I mean, the Astros, they were there, but they could never get over that hump.
Mm-hmm.
The Oilers at that point in the 90s were
on the way out.
They had failed the city on a football standpoint, and Bud Adams said, peace. So then you have the Rockets, those 2 titles in the 90s. My dad will talk about it to no end. Mm-hmm. He had the VHS tape of the 93 and 94 championship for the Rockets. So it's been a long time since Houston's been – I mean, they've been at the top recently, but they haven't, like we said with the Astros, hadn't gotten over that hump.
Yeah, but, I mean, when I look at it, there's so many teams in the league for so long that had you can take out a decade and be like, man, that decade, they just weren't very good, right? I think about the 2010s and the late Kobe years with the Lakers. Just not very good after Kobe's Achilles went out.
Yep.
I look at the Celtics, and the Celtics struggled for a long time after their last title until the new ownership came in and they got Tatum and they got Brown and they built through the draft. And the Rockets have always had success. It was Hakeem in the 90s. It was Yao and Tracy in the 2000s. It was James Harden and all those teams in the 2010s. And now Ime has given us the 2020s, this team. And when I saw that the Rockets were opening up the season, the very first game that we get to see is the Rockets versus the defending champions in this NBA on NBC era. To me, that was a validation of what the franchise had done and built up. They were a 2 seed last year, and I got to go to the first round game just as a fan. And I had never gotten to go to a playoff game in basketball before. And it was electric. And then the disappointment. And then you go out and you add Kevin Durant. And you get a guy like that who has connections to the state of Texas, being a Longhorn legend, and being one of the best just pure scorers in the history of the NBA. When you think of, I need somebody to go get a bucket, Kevin Durant's
KD.
on that list. He's top 3, and I don't even know who the other 2 are for a second. Maybe Michael Jordan and Kobe, or Michael Jordan and Tracy McGrady. But Fred VanVleet goes down with the injury, and I'm excited to see Reed Sheppard and see what he is going to do for the Rockets this year. Reed Sheppard was always the plan to replace Fred VanVleet. Now that plan's just been a little accelerated. But if he can play like he did whenever he got minutes in the G League, then then the rest of the West is in trouble because he was phenomenal down there.
Well, the starting 5 was just announced a little bit ago. If you wanted to rattle through them, Justin.
Yeah,
a very tall starting 5,
Yes.
by the way.
2019 me would be mind blown by this. So we've got Kevin Durant starting at shooting guard tonight. Amen Thompson's your starting point guard. Kevin Durant at shooting guard. Jabari Smith Jr. at small forward. Alperen Sengun at power forward. And Steven Adams at center. This is an absolutely massive lineup. They are going to bully people.
It is a solid mix of young guns and the old guard.
Yeah.
You got Kevin Durant and Steven Adams making their return to the Paycom Center, a place where, like I said earlier, it's where they built their careers.
Mm-hmm.
And both of them now in the twilight of their careers. I saw Kevin Durant sign that 2-year, $90 million deal. I think he has a player option for a third. Whether he chooses to exercise it or not, this is it.
Yeah, this is
it
the last stop.
This is it for KD. He's gonna play these 2 years out, maybe a third if he wants to exercise it, and that'll be his career, a Hall of Fame career.
Yes.
At that. And I think the one big thing, I don't know if this is in his mind or not, but I think on the heart of all Houston fans is that, KD's got nothing left to prove at the end of the day. He's got his rings, but he also, I think, is kind of a guy where he wants to help bring a championship back to the Bayou City.
Well, and I think he wants to bring a championship back to the state of Texas. He talks about how much he loves this state and his time here, however brief it was at the University of Texas, obviously left an impact on him so much so he's trying to bring a WNBA team to the city of Austin. I think the only thing KD has left to prove is that KD can be happy.
Yeah.
And he got to go where he wanted to go. It was always Houston. Houston or the Spurs were where he wanted to be. After the Spurs went and got De'Aaron Fox, it became Houston. And, we talk about this lineup, and that doesn't include Reed Sheppard, and I know he's 6'2", but he's still taller than Fred VanVleet was last year. And then Jabari Smith.
He's starting.
Tari Eason. Tari Eason going to come off the bench and just lock guys down for however long. And then you sign Clint Capella, and you sign who was the guy that we signed from
the Lakers?
It was from
Talk about Dorian Finney-Smith.
Dorian Finney-Smith.
He's hurt.
Oh, is he?
Yeah.
So how long is he out for? Let's see if ESPN has it. He's out with an ankle, no timetable to return. But he's a guy that was expected to come in and have big minutes. So, when I look at this roster, it's a big roster. I'm excited for it. I'm excited for Rockets basketball. I think you have one of, if not the best head coach in the NBA in Ime Udoka. And that's the other thing, is that people were wondering, how is Kevin Durant going to respond to hard coaching? Kevin Durant loved Ime when he was in Brooklyn with him. Those two were thick as thieves.
He's had hard coaching
throughout
his career.
So, the stuff with Budenholzer last year in Phoenix, I think that was just a whole weird Phoenix team. I think that locker room was not conducive to anybody's happiness. But Carlos, I'm so excited for Rockets basketball this year. This is maybe the first time since 2017 when we made that Chris Paul trade right before the season started that I think we have a chance to win a championship.
I look at it, and I've looked at it like this for a long time. The big three from OKC: Chris Paul, James Harden. All right, let's go big four: Chris Paul, James Harden, Russell Westbrook, Kevin Durant. The big four. You tried James Harden, couldn't bring you a ring. You tried Chris Paul. He's an Achilles injury away from bringing you a ring. Russell Westbrook. Yeah. Not the greatest one, so you tried that. So here's the final domino of the big four from OKC.
When Chris Paul was at the Clippers, I don't want to discount Lob City and Doc Rivers.
Sure.
But,
but they've all had stops.
All had stops there.
I think this is the piece that the Rockets were looking for.
They couldn't get a bucket to save their life in the half court last year. And so what do? You go and you get one of the best half court bucket getters in the history of the NBA. I mean, we have been robbed a little bit because I don't think we're going to be able to see the pick and roll with Kevin Durant and Fred VanVleet. That would just be amazing to watch. But, man, tomorrow night on NBC,
it's going to be a movie.
Going to take on the defending champs. They're going to show that they're probably going to bring out their rings.
Drop the banner.
And, there's going to be part of Kevin Durant that's going to want to spoil that.
Yep.
Because that franchise, when they traded James Harden away, robbed him of the ability to get that for Oklahoma City. If they kept that core together of Westbrook, Harden, and Kevin Durant, I honestly believe that LeBron James' legacy is drastically altered. Because we're talking about a Thunder team that had three superstars all under 25 years old that really would have been battling the Heat for years.
Yep.
So
it's tough, but now you look at it, Houston, you got to feel pretty good going into the season, barring everyone stays healthy and plays up to the standard that everyone hopes it could be, bringing a ring back to the Toyota Center and to the city of Houston. So we'll see. It all starts tomorrow, 6:30 on NBA on NBC. Very excited about that as well. All right, last segment here before we sign off for the day. Me and John were wrestling with an idea of just something not sport-related, like we always like to cap the show with. And, John, you came up with a celebrity road trip. Celebrities you would take, just go out on a drive with.
Yeah, hey, you got a 5 to 10 hour drive from here to El Paso or anywhere in the state of Texas, because you can't leave Texas pretty much on that time. But who would you want in the car, and what would their seat assignment be so that we know the jobs? So you're driving, and you got everybody else. I think my first one, I would want Timothy Chalamet. The Chalamet renaissance that's happening right now. The dude talks Maction like nobody's business.
Yep.
So I know I can talk sports with that guy.
Yeah.
As well as just talk about movies and nerd out about that, which is something else I'm very passionate about. Secondly, I would put Shaquille O'Neal on the Ox. DJ Diesel on the Ox for me. Also just keeping that energy. And then third, you can't have Shaq without Charles Barkley.
You can't.
And so I was trying to figure out a third person, but I was just like, man, Charles Barkley and Shaq going back and forth.
In the back seat.
In the back seat, if whenever they get back there or whatever's going on. If I have to take a seat off to drive, and so we put Charles up there to drive, those two in the same car, where they go. Chuck, where are we going, Chuck? We ain't going to Cancun. We're going to Galveston, Charles. Just going to
going to San Antonio.
Hey, Chuck, we're passing through San Antonio right now. Oh, San Antonio. Lock them doors. Hide those churros and big old women from San Antonio going to try to break in. So.
Man, that would be a hoot.
Oh yeah. So that would be my car ride right there. Timothy Chalamet and then the dynamic duo of Shaq and Chuck.
I had a hard time wrestling with who I'd want in my car. I went a different little route. I'd probably have Matthew McConaughey in the front seat. I just feel like that's a guy I could just talk to for hours.
You got to go backwards to go forward, Carlos.
That's right. And rightfully so, we'll be driving a Lincoln. So so have him in the front seat. You got to bring a little flavor to the car and just a little bit of excitement. It's a long drive. You got to be able to stay awake. So who better than to have yapping in your ear in the back seat? Just watched her on Saturday, host Saturday Night Live. I'd have Sabrina Carpenter in the back seat. One of the up and coming singers of nowadays.
Absolutely.
And, so just have her talk and keep you up the entire ride. No matter what, it'll drive you insane.
That's the only reason why.
The only reason why. And then for the third spot, I had to put an athlete in there, and I wrestled with it for a long time. But I just feel like I would have so many good back and forth conversations. Just look at him in the mirror and talk back and forth. I'd have Big Papi in the back seat, David Ortiz. Just me and him.
Hey, Carlos.
Be like, David, did the Yankees lose?
The Yankees lose. Yes.
Just it's quite the hodgepodge in there. It would be quite interesting conversations.
Very
to say
interesting.
the least. But that's my three.
Awesome.
That is my three. Nothing.
Do they have to be alive?
I mean,
if you want to have ghosts in the car with you, that's your own prerogative.
Listen.
That's like from Big Mouth, but
my
my
great show, by the way. My TikTok feed has just been nothing but AI recently.
Oh, no.
And it's like those AI like wrestling things as well. So like they're throwing MLK and the Queen into wrestling rings, and I'm just like, this is getting out of hand. Not at the same time.
Generative AI are you watching, Carlos?
It's just
I'm
I'm a wrestling fan. What do you want me to do?
Hey,
Which is something we're gonna get to on the
hey,
podcast.
we are. I think we're gonna save wrestling for Cena's last match.
Yes.
Because I think that's how we have to introduce our wrestling fandom in the show, because that's just going to be an hour of us just talking wrestling.
Yeah. So
it'll be just one, because the car I'm going to be driving is going to be a 1978 Pontiac Firebird with a T-roof, and it's going to be the ghost of Burt Reynolds. And we're going to drive from Texarkana to Atlanta.
I feel like you've thought about that before more than we've thought about that.
I just really like the movie Smokey and the Bandit.
That's fair. I was gonna say, but I was like, oh my goodness.
Movies.
yeah. So
that's gonna be it for me. Yeah, we're gonna pick up a semi full of Coors Light and drive it to Georgia.
there it is.
That's the plot of the movie.
So, well, there you go. Celebrity road trip.
All right. Well, again, thank y'all so much for joining us. Here every Monday, 2:00 on. Follow us on Twitter, BTM Podcast at BTM Podcast. I believe is our
or X.
Yes.
For you newbies out there, it's always going to be Twitter to us.
Beyond the Mic Podcast. So that way I can. Or wait, hold on. We have X Pro now.
Yes, we do.
So give us a follow if you. Look at the link in our bio, then you will see, it's Beyond TM Podcast. So at Beyond TM Podcast on X, if you check the link in our bio, you will see the link tree that takes you to our Spotify, that takes you to this podcast right here, as well as the KSAM channel. So thank you to KSAM for allowing us to do this on their feed as well, and as well as Apple's podcast, Spotify, our Buzzsprout podcast, if you want to listen on there as well. All the places we are and where we come to you. Carlos, any words of wisdom for anybody but as we exit out?
I don't think it's words of wisdom or anything of that sort, because I don't think I'm very wise, to say the least. But next week we'll have much more to talk about. More college football, I'm sure. A World Series that actually by the time next week could be over, if you think about it. So that could be something to talk about. Opening games for the Rockets. They have the Thunder tomorrow night, and then they have the Pistons later in the week, so we'll be able to mix in NBA. Before long here on the podcast, you'll know this about me and John. We're college basketball junkies. Yeah. He's ready for buckyball. I'm ready for Sam Houston to just tear it up on the court this year. It's going to be exciting, so college basketball will start becoming a topic of conversation. And as John said, wrestling, when it gets into December and it gets down to John Cena's last match, you'll get to know a little bit more of our fandom in the WWE realm. So lots to be excited about in the coming months here on Beyond the Mic. But we appreciate y'all tuning in here today. As like we said, we have finally found our solidified spot, Mondays, 2 o'clock on the KSAM YouTube channel, as well as it'll be on Apple and Spotify throughout the day afterwards. So thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next week here on Beyond the Mic.